I'm really, really happy to introduce Teresa, who is the head of Android engineering at Tide. I feel like we've been in talks for about a year. We wanted to do an event like this last year, but COVID happened and we couldn't. So yeah, I'm thrilled to have her here today, and I can't wait to hear what she's going to be talking about.
Hi guys, I'm George. I work in the product team at Gravitas, sort of a new venture of ours, but it's super exciting and growing really quickly. So yeah, I had a chat with Alex, who I actually came across sort of through Zoe actually. But yeah, we've been sort of speaking about different things and know that she's super passionate about sort of diversity and women in tech. And yeah, was actually in the top 50 of product women in Europe in 2018. So big name out there. So yeah, I wanted to see what her thoughts were on this. So yeah, I'd like to introduce Alex to take the floor first.
Hello everyone, and thank you. I'm very, very excited to be here. And so yeah, I'll just start. I'm Alexandra Lung. I'm head of product at Aircall. And actually at Aircall, we started a group on diversity and inclusion, and also on gender equality. And last week, someone added an interesting number in our group, and they shared the fact that in Europe, only 1% of the CTOs are women. Yeah, you heard it right. 99% of the CTOs in Europe are men. So we were all quite shocked, and we're like, okay. And the first question that came out is like, why? Why do you think that is? And when I saw that, actually, the first thing that came to my mind is a story from my personal experience. I'm originally from Romania, and we have different schools, on university level, and the Polytechnic school is one of the technical institutes that are most prestigious, like a little bit like in France as well. So in order to get to Polytechnics, you need to pass a series of exams in math, physics, and so on. So I remembered actually the day when I went to pass these exams, and I got there, and the lady at the reception, like, we said hi, and she told me, "Hi, are you here to support your boyfriend?" And I was like, "No, I'm here to take the exam." So I just think it strikes me as one of those examples of biases, and how this tech environment is not always very friendly with women. And this did not stop me. I did take the exam. I did graduate from the Polytechnics Institute. But when I think back, what it's really still like kind of amazed me, but not in a good way, is that when she said that, I didn't have the reaction of, "This is outrageous, why are you saying this?" My reaction was to think, "Oh, I'm looking for this, I deserve this." Because I had my hair done nicely, I was wearing makeup, I was having this nice green top with my sunglasses because it's in the summer. I just entered the building with this look of like, I'm taking care of myself, I'm here for these exams and so on. And like, actually, I was thinking, it is me. She told that because I didn't put myself in an appropriate way of looking or in an appropriate setting, so that she can think by default that I belong there. And this is what's really wrong. The fact that I put it on myself instead of being like, "No, I really belong here, and I will prove everyone that I belong here if I want to." And I think these are the kind of examples that we do a lot to ourselves. Like, we will put something on, "Oh, the fact that I'm a woman, or that I act in a certain way, or the fact that I'm black, or I don't know what different criteria." We will actually almost give excuses to people around us, or think that we should change something, when actually we are just okay and we belong there, as I was actually belonging to that institute, and I could get there and finalize it and so on. And after graduating Polytechnics, I came to France for my master's degree in business. And And after 3 months, we were all in the process of finding an internship. So as it was a new country for me, I went to talk to one of the professors there, and I really wanted his guidance. I wanted to become a product manager. I saw that I really love product, and I mean, it seemed very interesting for me. I've been doing before that, I was doing some consulting in strategy, and I was really interested by this product part. And actually, I was coming from in France again. There are two types of higher universities, and then you have what they call Grande École, which are schools that you need to pay a lot to get to. So coming from my background from Romania, I didn't have the money to actually pay for a Grande École, so I was actually studying in a university. So when I went to talk to this teacher and I told him, look, I want to be a PM, like, can you guide me to like how you do that in France? He told me, you're never gonna get a PM job. And he implied the fact that if I would be smart enough, I would be in a Grande École and I will never get a PM job there. So here it wasn't a bias against women, it was a bias about his own culture and the fact that if I would have been his daughter, he could have been able to support me going into a different school. But it's really hard. I'm sure we all have these stories, right? When someone tells you straightforward, you're not material for that, you won't be able to do it. And especially when coming to a new country and a new culture, you are like, okay, am I on the other planet, or like, am I actually able to do this? As a matter of fact, I was the first one from the whole promotion that got an internship as a product manager and well paid in a good company. So yeah, I was able to prove that you can do it. Just because I trusted myself and I went for it. I was like, okay, because one person tells me I can't do it doesn't mean I can't actually apply and I can't actually go through those interviews. And I think these kind of learnings in my life, when people like tell you it's impossible and you prove it, and it makes sense for you and for your career and for your passion, are one of those things that also help you understand and grow yourself, your self-worth, your self-esteem, and so on. But actually, during the same time when I was looking for my new job in France, I also came across recruiting agencies in France, like from the France government, that guide you into how to present yourself. And as it was again a new culture, I was adapting a lot. I was really trying to understand how to make this right. And something that actually, they taught me a few technicalities about the CV in France. And afterwards, they told me, you need to be more humble. And actually, I think this happens more than once. People mistake humble with not knowing your worth. I wasn't there saying, I'm the best, I'm better than anyone else, I can, whatever. I was just explaining what I've done before, what I've learned, what are my strengths, and what I think I can do. And I was very much believing in myself that I can go for that next challenge and I can do something. And actually, the fact that you need to be more humble was put in front of me. It made me think. I mean, we get feedback and we think, okay, how can I project myself? Should I not put myself forward too much? Should I censor more the achievements that I had in the past? And my answer for myself was no. You need to sell yourself for your worth, and you need to know your worth. And that's what's going to help you get out there. And to be honest, I'm not sure that person would have said the same thing to a man, but this is just a personal learning for me. It's really know your self-worth. Of course, be humble as well, but don't mistake the two of these. And well, a few years later, I was working for a company as their product manager, and as their lead product manager, actually, I was managing all the product parts together with the CTO and the CEO. And it was in a startup in a bigger company. So one day, and I was also doing marketing and a few other stuff because it was like a lot of like a startup mode. And one day the CEO came to me and he said, look, like we're looking into how we're going to expand the organization, the business, and so on. So I'm looking into hiring a director. So so at the time, so when he said that, like next days I was thinking, well, I I think they're going to propose this position to me. Like, I'm already doing this role, and they're telling me every day how great I am and how I'm overachieving in this role. So I'm sure you all see where this is going. They didn't they didn't offer me the position, and I didn't ask for it, because it was, I think in my head it was like, I deserve this position. They will just offer it. And they ended up by hiring a director, man who was really experienced. He had like 15 years more experience. And during the time, like, we worked really well together, but during that time, like, my husband asked me this question a few times. He was like, if you would have been in his place, do you think you would have done things better, worse, differently? Like, what do you think? And it just made me think that I could have been in that position if I would have asked for it. I think that was a learning that I never left afterwards. You need to ask for it. And I today ask for it. Sometimes there might be things or positions or opportunities that seem for some people so out of your way. I think you just need to ask for it. And also, when you ask for it, don't ask for it as if you're excusing, oh, I was thinking that maybe, and I deserve it because so and so and so. Ask for it by knowing that you deserve it, that you have what it takes to be successful there. And I think this is something that I also learned throughout the way. For example, my very first job, like as a permanent position, was like, I took the job of someone who had 7 years of experience. I was just out of college. A lot of people told me, you should not apply for these kind of positions. I did, and it worked really well, and I was very successful in that job. So my message here is really ask for it, because rarely people will just give it to you. And when you ask for it, make sure that you have the right attitude to do it. And I think for me, my journey was really about getting to know myself, to improve myself as well, because we always learn a lot, but really jumping into that next challenge and growing and making sure that I go for the next thing that I'm really passionate about, that brings me joy every day, but it also challenges me. And so I will stop here, but I want to really leave you with these learnings around really knowing your worth, asking for the next position, asking for that seat at the table, because that's how you're going to make magic happen. That's all for me. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much, Alex. I really, really loved hearing that. And now, Teresa, I'm going to let you take the floor.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. Thanks, Alexandra. That's a really amazing story. I'm going to give a story of how I turned myself from a business background into IT. It's a simple story. I think it's probably everyone had a similar experience. So basically, I became IT engineer after I had my first son. So I was in business before, and I really actually enjoyed it, but until I don't, until I started to feel a bit boring. Sorry. Then I self-learned Java by myself, did some projects on the side, and I found it's really, really interesting. So I decided to apply for a master course. At the time, I had a 1-year-old son, had a full-time job. So when I applied, my tutor at the time, who doesn't know me, he actually suggests this course is very difficult, and I might not be able to pass it. And I'm the only application in the whole group who doesn't have an IT background applying for master course. So he suggests me doing something different, which is easier. But I took the challenge. I said, I'm going to pass it. I will do it. Trust me. And in the end, he still remembers me today because he referred me as the students in a group who studied until 11 p.m. every day. So I had so basically having a full-time job, having a son, that means I only have option to go for our evening course. So I think I finished my work at 5-ish, and then I started my university course 6 to 9 p.m. for 2 years. Yeah, in the end, I did it, and I really appreciate the time I did it. Although I don't think a degree is necessary, it's not. It's just for me to find a way to nurse the basic things I'm not able to self-learn myself. Also, another thing is when I start my journey in IT, there are times when things get really, really difficult. I might want to give up or go for my old into my older career, which is easier because I know things around there. But because I spent 2 years time invest in it, so that's the reason why I continued keep it going. I just don't want to waste throw it away. Yeah, so joining IT industry, starting from individual contributor, and then slowly I become a senior engineer, and then eventually I've been offered the position to lead a team. But I would say before I become the head of engineering for my company, be a senior engineer is actually a very happy time, because you know what you need to do. That's my comfort zone. I know my code. I know my project. I make my team very happy. Eventually, once you turn to the other side and sort of quit the other side, the managerial track, things might become more difficult, because you will become the one from accept the decision and implementing the decision. You will then become the one, actually you have to make decisions. You will be the one making changes or hit the ground or maybe even break things. And eventually, because of that, people might start criticize you, and maybe you will be misunderstood. So in the past few months of my journey, it's a bit it's very challenging for me. Two things I learned is first, when people start criticize things about you, don't take it personal. Don't take it if it's discrimination. You want to be treated fair, so we need to actually start thinking everything in a very fair in a very fair way. And the second is be open about it. So I'm very open to my team, the fact that I like my boy, I like my family more than the job. So there are times when, for example, right, when we need to do on-call, then at the same time, I need to take my boy to his swimming club, then you need to make a choice. So whether do it, if not, be honest about why you can't do it. I think I'm luckily I'm in a team people are very supportive. They understand the commitment you have for your family, and naturally, as a mom, woman in IT, there are things you probably have to face. But during this situation, right, just be really open about when you make a choice. Yeah, so that's basically yeah, that's me.
Perfect, excellent. Thanks so much, Teresa. I really appreciate your story, and Alexandra as well. Thank you so much for sharing those points with us. I think that everything sort of really rings true, probably not just even in sort of technology companies, but across different areas, and just generally being a woman in a business environment. I think that that's all really good advice. So I want to now open up to the Q&A and open the floor up to you guys. So yeah, please do bring yourselves off mute, and who wants to kick us off with the first question?
Hi there, we have a few questions. So the first question was, what steps do you think we as women can take to ensure there isn't any gender gap in the workplace? Shall I mute?
You mean as us who, for example, if we're looking for jobs? or as we if we are employee?
Employees.
I think at least speaking for myself, right? For at least for my company, we really encouraging female engineers to join the team. We have, for example, right, by us going to different community group and the workshops, we really want to bring that gender gap as closer as possible. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's not easy to answer the question, because at least for today, I don't think there's any company in the world would actually doesn't want to encourage female, not just in IT industry, in any industry. I think we are in a place where things are being the process is really fair for any gender, any background, any culture. But I don't know if like for everyone, right, in this chat, if you have experienced anything in the past where you want to, you want to share, or if your company is doing something extremely well, maybe you can share your experience as well, so for us to learn to adapt.
I think on my side, a few things that I've seen, like that I think that we are doing right now at Aircall, but that help, and I didn't see in all companies. I think what's really important is to be very transparent in the policies, in the communication. And for example, something that I know we have today at Aircall is like having equal pay, which is not the case yet in all the companies. And a lot of times this is like a taboo topic that is not really talked about. But at least I know that like my teams, I have equal pay, and I think it's the case for the other teams today at Aircall. And I think this is definitely something that companies can start reinforcing, like just looking at the seniority of the person you're hiring and offering a certain amount, and not taking into account just the previous salary, of seeing that a woman is potentially maybe having already a less salary. I think something other things that I, for example, do with my team where I feel need is like, I think we also sometimes need to share examples or have coaches or mentors, or even between ourselves. Like I know I will put my team forward equally, but sometimes I will also make sure that I encourage, depending on the personality, also certain women to communicate or to take certain challenges, or to most of the times it's not needed, as it depends on the personality. But I think also making sure that we encourage this, and also making sure that like I think today a lot of things that are a bit like male attitudes is very much the norm. Like for example, as a leader, I've been told you are kind, you are not going to be a leader if you are kind. And I think people mistake a lot of times being kind with not being effective or not being a good leader. And actually and a lot of times being tough or having a more like aggressive or ill attitude is seen as the norm, versus, oh, you as the woman, you need to adapt to that. And I think it's also up to us to stand to that and say, no, actually caring is good. Caring will make my team feel I care about them, and that I want them to grow, and I want them to succeed, and that it will eventually in the end improve their motivation. Or just like I know also back to that and being like, yeah, maybe I have I'm more an empathetical person, but that's also a good thing for a leader, to be self-aware and empathetic, and not just. So I think there are some things that we've lived for a long time, and especially I've seen this in companies like tech and I've been in rooms where I was the only woman, where you can feel different, I was saying before, and just like you're not feeling different or not letting them impose on you to change the way you are, I think can also help. And eventually, a last thing that I think it goes more than from the companies. I think it's also on ourselves and even the society. It's education. Like I have a little girl myself, and I know that I'm very aware on the way we treat her, the way I talk to her, and the way like people give presents or tell her what she should do and how she should behave. I think a lot of times there are a lot of role models as growing as kids in movies or in stories or so on that are also like today, when you look at the data, more male than and woman like. Or I also just making sure that and I think for boys even more, right, we're growing boys as well, so just making them be respectful, see equality, the fact that we can all do certain things really well. I think that's really important as well, and that will change in time, so certain behaviors and certain biases as well.
Alexandra, I completely agree with your sort of kindness thing. So when myself and Laura both started at Gravitas, we actually were in a team that was very male dominated. Recruitment is quite a male dominated industry, with kind of how savage it can be sometimes. But I think we kind of showed how, well, Laura especially showed how it doesn't matter how you're seen and what you're sort of, how you come across, because probably come across a little bit softer than the guys in our teams, but it hasn't stopped us in any way. And Laura's risen through the ranks massively so quickly, and better than half the boys in the company. So it really doesn't show that gender is a thing. Like your attitude towards it and what you want to get from it is the only thing that will stop you. It's not what you look like or what you can do. It's exactly your attitude towards it. So I can completely agree with what you said.
I had a question about hiring. So Teresa, you mentioned that you guys are trying to hire more female engineers. I'm really interested to hear if you have a quota, because at my company we're starting to talk about this, but we often come up against the challenge of
questa è la responsabilità che tutti noi motoristi in Ferrari sentiamo quando ripensiamo.
Sorry guys, could I just ask that everyone just put themselves on mute?
Cultura motoristica. Eppure sappiamo che i successi del passato non sono una garanzia per quelli futuri. Sappiamo che una storia.
There we go. Sorry about that. Carry on, Harriet. Sorry about that.
No worries. So onto my question. Yeah. So basically at my company, we come up against the challenge that, there's not actually enough women out there, and we've got to hire the right person for the job. And so I was wondering if you've come up against those challenges at all and how you've counteracted them. And I'd love to hear from Alexandra as well on that too.
Yeah, we definitely have. I think everyone have the same challenges. I really wanted to encourage more female to join the team, but looking at the application percentage, there's definitely more male application than female. At the same time, we want to give a fair opportunity for all engineers as well. So our interview process is very data driven. So we look at the actual performance. We examine the actual performance. We don't actually examine based on the gender. So we don't try to discriminate even for male as well. And in our company, we have a system, we call it growth framework. So we try to be data driven, be transparent about the skill set and how you can develop yourself in a team. So we will discuss this as part of our interview for any engineers. And I feel this is very attractive for female engineer, for example, so they understand how they can develop themselves, how their performance is evaluated once they join. So we will not we'll have zero tolerance for anything political in our company. So our growth framework is transparent. Everyone can see it. Everyone will at the end of each performance review cycle, we will use our growth framework to evaluate performance and the things, how they develop themselves during the year, during the past 6 months. So everyone is aware of things they can learn, things they want to learn, and what things other people is doing. So we make things very as transparent as we can. And yeah, we also discuss this during interview to encourage engineers from different background, different culture, because I believe Alexandra probably, her company is probably even bigger than my company, but we have different, we're in different locations with different culture. So this is actually, for me, it's quite important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the same. We have the same challenge that I was just discussing with our engineering manager in Spain, actually, because we're hiring quite a lot right now in Spain, and it is hard to hire women, especially in engineering. I think in product I still see more men than women, but it's a bit I think the situation is a bit more balanced than definitely than in engineering. What we are doing is like a bit as you were saying as well, Teresa, so really making sure that we have the same process, that we're really transparent. I think in my team, like I do have a good balance. I still have less women men, but it's I think we have a pretty good balance. But something that we were discussing as well, and like actually I read a few articles about this the other week, is something that can help, but not sure how proven it is in time, is that the way we write the job descriptions can be a bit biased sometimes. I'm sure you are more experts than me on this one, but really sometimes some adjectives or what we're looking for, or the way we frame some of the description can make sometimes can potentially make some of the women say, okay, maybe this is not for me. I think we also seen that sometimes women will really need to feel that they go and fill almost all the criteria on a job offering in order to apply, versus sometimes men would be like, oh, I like it's most of it, let's just go for it. So I think we need to, like, we, at least on our side, like we took this as an action for our next hirings, to really make sure, especially for engineering, but also actually for all the departments, to make sure that we double read that, or that we try to be very mindful of the way we frame the job descriptions.
Yeah, that's something that we've come across a lot, as you were saying, obviously being in recruitment. These are kind of things that we work on with some of our clients, and even the adverts that we put out ourselves. And it's quite a staggering stat, actually, that a woman has to match a minimum of 80% of the criteria on a job spec, on an advert, and a man 20% to feel like it's worth applying for. And that's only putting your application forward. And we are seeing it more and more, where companies are backing away from using criteria or essential experience now, and more painting the picture of what a role is, what you will be doing in your role, and inviting people who think that they are going to be able to bring value to that. To apply. So yeah, I think that it's something that's definitely worth sort of putting forward to companies. But yeah, has anyone else got any other questions?
Yeah. I had another question as well, and it kind of ties with what Teresa said about not discriminating against men as well. So I know we're all here as part of a kind of International Women's Day, but I think something that I'd like to ask is what everyone thinks about hiring policies that just solely use females to drive the headcount.
That's a tricky one. I know I've never done it. Like I never had to do it. In my teams, I usually had pretty balanced genders. I did think about it a bit, because I hired, for example, I hired 8 people when I joined, and I had way more and applying, and I had it a bit on the back of my mind to think, okay, how can I? But I never did it. I think it depends. Like I did, for example, I was contacted sometimes for positions of leadership where I know the client specifically said, we want a woman. I think especially when you look at C-level, we still have very, very few female leaders in the executive teams, and I sometimes see these incentives of some of the founders that say we want to have at least one woman. But yeah, I never did it. I think it would depend a lot on the context and what they want to show. I think what's important is to always think of what's the value the person brings to the table, like not just hiring someone because is a woman would not benefit anyone. It's making sure that it's a good fit in a least biased way.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alexandra on this. Is in one way we want to encourage female to join the team, to be part of our team, but on the other hand, we need to make sure that the process is fair, and we want to attract any diversity, any culture background. I don't think it's only about gender, culture as well. Yes, that it also depends on the company and the industry they're in. So maybe there are different cases and scenarios. Company might do things differently, but I haven't come across in my own experience where we specifically looking only for example, in one gender. But I also agree with what we discussed previously is when we have the job advert and how things were described in a job is, so maybe, right, we can emphasize more on soft skills, especially in IT, because when you open job description in most of the IT job, you see like a very strongly word of you must have desired, and all of them are experienced previously. You need to know C++, you need to know Android, you need to know database. So those are very, I would say, very hard skills. At the same time, we added some nice to have, some desired skills, which is more soft skills like leadership, being open-minded, and being a team player. So in this way, you attract, I would say you attract female engineers as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that I guess it gets pushed on to recruiters because, you know, we don't put a job advert out generally. I know, well, we don't generally need to. We know you guys well enough that we can just call you and tell you about it. But I think the way that we can approach it, I know sometimes when I speak to a guy about a role, I do, and I can admit to it, I do very much tell them the job spec and it's whether they like it or not. Whereas when I sell it to a woman, I will be much open about the progression, the team, what they look like at the moment, because sometimes it is a bit more important. But actually recently kind of noticing this, and it's not about just women in tech or men in tech, it's treating everyone the exact same so that there is no bias. And I've noticed that myself, and just because I do it, I mean, luckily I have noticed that now. It's been a while, I've probably been doing it without noticing. But yeah, everyone needs to be treated the exact same. And yeah, I think it's diversity, but we just obviously want to keep the women to the top if we can.
I'm really curious, like with Zoe and George, like do you see a lot of clients coming to you and saying, I want to hire a woman? Or they're most of the time saying, well, we're just looking for someone?
Yeah, I think there can be a way up between talent and who they need. We never have a client say, look, we have to have a woman and that is it. We won't work with you on that. But there's definitely companies that will say to us, we would like to see as many female profiles as we would like to see male. I think especially Laura sees it in development. In product we do, there is a lot more women, luckily for me. But yeah, I think in development there's definitely a push to find some diversity, because not only do women bring in, you know, a different attitude towards it, but they bring in different talent. So things that sometimes guys can miss, and we all know that we'll probably go into far more detail about things because we like to remember absolutely everything. But things like that is a massive skill that someone might miss out on, and that's why they want that sort of talent. But I'm sure Lara can sort of speak a bit more about the splits that there can be in development.
Yeah, to be honest, it's so sad. It's so rare that I work with the female developers. Actually, right now I'm working with more females than I am men, which is amazing. I realized that today. But no, we have had it quite recently. I think over the past 6 or 7 months, we have actually had clients who have requested for, in particular, females to be hired to the team. And sometimes it has meant that we have had to go back and sort of speak through why that is. A lot of them, it's because they do purely want to make their workforce a lot more diverse. And I think in technology, they're pretty conscious that it is much more male dominated. And I think they are doing it for that reason. But it's just sort of sitting down with them, going through the technicalities of the role and just being realistic with them, really. But no, I have noticed it a lot more, especially since I started working in Android. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you, Lara, and you've touched on it there. There's a big education piece, which I think we're very lucky, the positions that we're in, where we are getting to work with managers and businesses and helping them understand why do they want that gender diversity? What is it? Do they fully understand the value that it brings? And actually what that realistically looks like. So not just doing it for a tick box exercise. One of my clients, they've actually kind of taken away a lot of the essential skills, not just on the job advert, but actually considering what people can do when they come into the role. So their core tech stack is Python. Actually, they've taken a step back and realized, look, someone might not have 5 years hands-on experience with Python. That doesn't mean that they now are suddenly a junior developer or anything like that. Actually, the fact that they are a developer or that they are technical, they are going to be able to cross-train. So really, is there a way that we can support people to come over and, maybe that will help to diversify some of these tech stacks that do have far less female developers in. So I think sometimes it's around looking at those different educational pieces as well on how to sort of overcome, I think, the barrier to entry, which seems to be a common thing that I've seen myself. Does anyone else have any questions, or do you want to put any of your own experiences forward? Yeah.
I was just going to ask, so personally, I have encountered maybe being soft or kind, and then people like my team, so I'm a product owner, I'm quite young for the team size that I have, which I think is great, but often does work against me. And I just wonder if you guys have any advice or how to approach it, because sometimes I do question okay, I don't want to go from being kind of super kind to going too strident, and kind of trying to find the barrier, the balance there as well. So I don't know if you have any tips or anything. Anyone?
I think, yeah, I think I've had a lot of experience, similar experiences as well. And I think we always have a challenge as product. Well, every different job has different challenges, but I definitely relate to what you're saying. I think some things that I used to do when I was working directly with teams is to make sure I always get back to the facts or the objective, and be a lot of times you would say, as a PM and as a favor to the team, I need to either take X decision or state this or say this. So I think it's not explaining yourself oh, sorry, I'm doing it, but just kind of putting it into context and being I don't know, maybe they're just working on something and not giving information, and you really need to know what's happening. And you can say, okay, so as we have pressure from in doing this, and our objective was last week, can we just sit down and see what's the risk and see how we can mitigate it? Or just for me, I think it helps a lot putting things clear into context. I also something that I used a lot, like, and I learned in one of the companies when I was PM, is like really feedback, like making sure that I give and I ask for feedback. And I think that kind of creates, if done right, and it's not easy, it really creates a good communication and understanding. And I sometimes used to have like 15 minutes one-on-ones with the developers, for example, and just had like pluses and deltas, you know, like for how we work together. And it's also a way of just like sharing, you know, and in that very constructive way of like, when you did that, like I saw it in that, so wondering how we can improve this. But I think it's also a way of let's just having those conversations often, some of these conversations often. I think it depends also, like it's about like how you feel about it. Sometimes as a PM, you will need to take some decisions on behalf of the team, but I also like to hear a lot like the different perspectives, because there is so much knowledge. Sometimes I also used to have like a quick collaborative exercise and make sure, I don't know, at the end we vote or something happens, but just making sure we converge. And I'm very clear on like, okay, at the end we really need to converge. We have 1 hour, so at the end we'll do this, and for the sake of our team or effectiveness. Or like sometimes a lot of time I take people like in the meetings, when I see that it takes too long, I'm really like stopping and like, okay, sorry, but I'm conscious of the time, so can you just take 2 minutes and I'll stop you, just clarify this, and then you will stop. So I think you shouldn't be afraid of going a bit more like directly to it or clear to it, but as long as you explain it why you do it, it's, you know, so that people don't feel it's your ego and you just want to control things. It's about like, okay, we just have 30 minutes, we engage ourselves in doing that, or so on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and add on to that, I think Alexandra has explained it really well. I read some article before. In the article, it says, when a woman expresses herself, push her ideas through, she is seen as being emotional. At the same time, when a male pushes his ideas through, express his opinion, he's being seen as being straightforward, knowing what he needs to do. So yeah, unfortunately, this is how the industry look at things, all the views on things, right? So in this way, I think don't be afraid to make decisions when you need to, but to make sure you communicate well with everyone. So yeah, communication is the key. When you have to make a decision, sometimes it's quite difficult, especially in your position as a PO or a PM, because as Alexandra said, right, you probably have to make decision for the entire team, for your product. So communicate to your team why you have to make decision, and invite them to be part of the process as well. So for me, if I have to make some decision, get the buy-in is probably very important. Once you have people buying, they understand why you need to do this. It will be so much easier when you have to implementing things.
Thanks, guys.
Amazing. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm just aware of the time, and I do want to make sure that we wrap up on time. As I said at the beginning, I know everyone's time is tight at the moment, but thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Alexandra and Teresa, for giving us your time this evening. I mean, myself, I found it really, really valuable. I think there's been some really key takeaways just for, I think, just being a woman in business that I'm definitely going to implement. Just to sort of let everyone know, we have recorded the session, so we will be taking some of the sound bites out and sharing those out with everyone. But if there is anyone who didn't want to put their question forward, or if you think of a question afterwards, do share them with us, and we will aim to get those answered. We will also invite you to the community page that we're putting together on LinkedIn, where you will be able to sort of stay in touch and share some of the extra information with each other. But yeah, thanks so much. I'm just going to see, I'm just going to launch a poll. If you wouldn't mind quickly answering, there's 3 questions. If you wouldn't mind quickly answering that before you leave, that would be great. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much as well for the speakers. I know it's not the easiest thing to to work and put together one of these. So we're massively thankful. And yeah, it was lovely to see all your faces as well, because it's been such a long time since we've been able to see what everyone looks like again. So it's great.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do this in person one day. Can't wait for that.
Not long.
For having us.
Not long. No.
Great. Thanks, everyone.